Risk versus reward. Big question right now. Is it worth cruising? With everything going on out there in the world, with port cancellations, COVID on the cruise ships, you got to ask yourself, is it worth cruising right now? Is the reward of cruising enough right now to keep going? We'll get into all of it right after this. Chris here with High Seas Cruising, and welcome to today's video. Alright, risk versus reward. Is the reward of cruising worth the risk of things that are going on right now? That's going to be our big question. That's probably what is on more people's mind when it comes to cruising than anything else right now. Now, before we answer that question, or I give you my opinion on that question, I do want to kind of dispel some of the cruising falsehoods that are going on right now. I guess that's probably the best way to say it. We'll call them falsehoods. Things being put out in the media that aren't as true as they would like you to think they are. First, yes, the CDC did raise the threat level on cruising from level 3 to level 4. Yes, the CDC advises, regardless of your vaccination status, people shouldn't cruise. That really happened? The CDC really put that out. What is not true are the rumors, the stories, the people posting on other social medias, Facebooks, Twitters, that cruises are going to be canceled or cruises are canceling over this CDC recommendation. Look, this is just a recommendation. The CDC has raised the level on cruising before. They've raised it on other countries' port destinations and different locations around the world before. So as far as that goes, it's just a recommendation. And as of now, as of today, the cruise lines are saying, look, we are not planning on stopping cruising. We are not planning on shutting down cruising. Okay? It's just a recommendation from the CDC. Number 2, there are no cruise ports for these cruise ships to go to. Every cruise port has denied cruising. Again, not true. Yes, there have been some incidences. Yes, there are some islands out there in the Caribbean in particular that are having their own battles with the Omicron variant, that are having their own COVID issues. And there have been some denials. We've seen it down there through the ABC Islands. It's happened. It's happened a couple of times over in Mexico. Yes, there even been some stories of cruise ships being denied from private islands. Just to kind of put this in perspective for you, Royal Caribbean put out some information that out of 300 plus port stops, only 16 of that have actually been affected and the cruise ship has not been allowed to stop. Okay, so yeah, if you watch news stories, it's cruise ships denied, cruise ships denied, cruise ships denied. And it has happened. All of that is true. But remember, that is a small percentage number compared to the overall number of stops that are successfully made week after week. If a cruise ship goes out, has an awesome cruise, doesn't have any issues, and doesn't have any problems, guess what? It doesn't make the news. They don't talk about that one because they cannot sensationalize that. And the third myth out there is cruise ships can't go to their own private islands. Yep, that kind of has to do with cruise ships not being allowed to dock. But this is specifically the cruise line's private islands. Yes, there have been some incidences. Royal Caribbean's had an issue at Coco Cay. Disney has had an issue at Castaway Cay. And MSC has had an issue at Ocean Cay. But those are completely one-off issues. Any cruise line, when it comes to a port stop, is being done on a ship-by-ship basis, not as an industry as a whole. And look, if the Bahamas were honestly going to put some kind of restriction in there more than they already have with the vaccination requirements, look, those would start at places like Nassau and the Grand Bahamas before they're going to start at the private islands, which is essentially just crew and passengers from that ship. That's where you would see it way before you would see it at the private islands. So look, these are just some one-off cases. But again, when it happens one time, 2 times, or 3 times out of hundreds of cruises, yeah, it's going to get sensationalized in the news. So of course, it always seems worse than it really is. They always make it sound catastrophic. They always make it sound like the end of the world, when in reality you're talking a very small percentage of a very big picture. Now, with that said, though, let us keep in mind that it can actually still happen. You can still book a cruise, you can sail away from your home port, and there could be COVID cases on board. Very true. You could accidentally get picked up in a close contact check, end up quarantined in your cabin, awaiting a COVID test over someone else testing positive. All that is very true. You could have entertainment on board your cruise ship affected right now. If your entertainers get COVID, they're going to be quarantined, and that may affect a production show. It could affect activities on board the cruise ship. You could have your cruise director get COVID and not be available for activities on board the ship. All of that is very, very true as well. It's not every ship. It's not every cruise. It's not every time. But it is a possibility. You could be heading for your favorite cruise port, the one you absolutely wanted to stop at, and you could get denied permission to dock. That can happen. Again, small percentage, big pie, but it can happen. You yourself could be one of those people that tests positive for COVID. Again, it can happen regardless of your vaccination status, regardless if you're wearing masks all the time indoors, regardless if you maintain your 6-foot social distancing like you're supposed to. It can still happen. You could have gotten it on the way to the cruise. You could have gotten it in the embarkation terminal, on the ship, one of the cruise ports. I mean, it's everywhere right now. It's being transmitted all over the place. The cases are on the rise. Now, they're asymptomatic, yes. The chances of you getting stuck in a hospital, slim. But it can still disrupt your cruise. So that brings us back to our original question, and our original point is the risk worth the reward? Are the things where you could test positive, possibly miss a cruise port, possibly have some issues with the cruise, with the entertainment on board, is that risk worth the reward of still getting on the cruise ship? Thousands and thousands of people are still boarding cruise ships each and every week because they are taking the options and they are saying that yes, the risk of that happening on my cruise ship is definitely worth the reward of going on a cruise. Me personally, I think the risk is absolutely worth the reward. Now, with that said in mind, I also weigh the options. Right now, I would not necessarily fly halfway across the country to get on a cruise ship going to a specific port, let's say the ABC Islands. Let's say that, I want to book this cruise because it's going to Aruba. Well, right now, the risk of not being able to stop in Aruba, that's pretty high versus the risk of, not being able to stop in, say, Cozumel. So there is some thought into the risk versus reward. At least for me, there is. Now, I'm assuming that as cruisers yourselves, you're also thinking about the risk versus the reward. Is right now the time for you to go cruising? Is right now the time to book a cruise? And then, that's going to have to be a question that everybody asks themselves. That's going to have to be something you're going to have to decide. Is it worth it to you? I can't answer that question for you. I can only answer that question for me. And my situation is different than some people's situation. It's a 4-hour drive for me to drive down to Galveston and get on a cruise ship. Well, that is a lot different than flying, say, all the way out to Florida. Say, flying all the way out to California. Well, now you got airfare and hotels and all this other kind of stuff that you have to consider that in my case right now, I wouldn't necessarily have to consider. Because I don't think right now I would go one of those two directions. Not at the moment. But again, that's me. And like I always like to say, you, of course, have to do you. I'm not discouraging anybody from cruising. If anything, I'm encouraging everybody from cruising, but I want you to cruise with your eyes open. Okay? Not based on what the media tells you, not based on something that you read from Aunt Sally's Facebook page, but the reality, the truth of the story is yes, there is some risk. Yes, you could face some disappointment. Yes, there could be some issues on your cruise ship. Absolutely yes. But it's not every ship. It's not every time. You only hear about what they sensationalize. You don't hear about the hundreds of other ships that go out and have no problems on a weekly basis. And that is what I think everybody has to remember and what everybody actually has to think about. Look, if it was so bad, I mean, as awful as the news media makes it out to be in some of these stories, don't you think the CDC or somebody would actually be trying to shut down cruising? I think that they would. But I also think when you look at cruising in the bigger picture, when you look at cruising in reality, what's truthful versus what's not, based on the medical science that the government gives us, based on what the information that the CDC gives us. Let's be honest here. On a cruise ship, everybody's vaccinated. At least the majority, 95% or better, are vaccinated. Crew has booster shots. You have to wear a mask. You have to be socially distanced. They have special air filters all throughout the ship. The amount of cleaning and disinfecting that's going on board these cruise ships, I mean, they have got to be some of the absolute cleanest places you can possibly be. And I'm not saying Disney doesn't care about its people like when we're talking theme parks, but do you really think they are cleaning and disinfecting as much as they are on a cruise ship? Go look at some pictures from New Year's Eve in Disney World. See how packed those people are in there. Look at a sporting event, a music concert, an airport, your local grocery store, department store. You tell me those places are cleaner, safer than any cruise ship out there? I challenge you to do that. Please let me know which one is cleaner. Whose health and safety protocols are higher than the cruise industry? I would much rather be on a cruise, and I say, for me, the risk is definitely worth the reward. But y'all let me know in the comments below, what do you think? Is the risk worth the reward? All right, I hope you have enjoyed today's video. If you have, do me a favor. Let's give it a thumbs up. Have yourself a great day. And like always, we will see you out on the high seas.